And we're back with the Barkology Podcast. This episode's not really sponsored by anybody, but we had a phenomenal guest on today. His name's Jerry Chasteen.
Oh, yeah.
Literally focuses and has kind of devoted a portion of his life to breeding, raising, hunting dogs.
I learned so much.
Yeah, as did I. And, you know, it's very important, I think, to check this episode out because there's a lot of stigma and misconception, I guess, when it comes to raising dogs, when it comes to hunting, because there's a stigma associated with hunting in general. But fucking check it out. It was a lot of fun. Jerry's one of our buddies from school. Had a great time. Talked about hunting, raising dogs, the training involved with that kind of stuff. So check it out. Love you guys. The Bark Pack coming in. Check us out, as always, at barkology.podbean.com or at Barkology Podcast on every other social media platform. And do it up. Love you guys.
Yeah. That's amazing. The dogs. Is that even a real story? That's a fact.
This is complete nonsense, Greg.
Read a book.
I guess you are kind of artistic.
Incredible.
What are you even talking about, man?
Go for broke.
I don't even know what that means. Let's get it going.
Let's get her going. Keep her going, baby.
Greg's opener.
Oh, baby. We are back.
What's up, buddy?
How are you doing, Scout?
I look good, I feel good, and I'm going to podcast
you don't
good.
look good.
I don't
but
look
I hope
bad.
your podcast good.
I don't look bad, you brother.
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and you look terrible. But today, I'm super pumped up. We got our good buddy, Jerry Chasteen III.
Is it Gerald?
Gerald? It's Gerald, right? That's how you pronounce it.
Gerard?
Gerard.
Gerard, okay.
Gerard.
So we have
Gerard, yeah.
What's up, Jerry? How you doing, man? It's been a long time, but Jerry went to school with us. He graduated a couple years behind Greg and I, but
At
great
the-
dude. Love him.
Yeah, man. I got introduced to these guys, to you guys, probably my first day or so of school, and ever since then, you've been a bunch of awesome dudes. So I'm here to talk about some dog stuff, some working dogs, some hunting dogs, and really ready to get it rolling.
That's awesome. So before we jump into dogs here, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're doing now.
So graduated NAS 2015, business major, starting to take over a family business. Kind of always knew the plan of wanting to take over the business. So now I'm kind of in the process of making it happen. My dad is enjoying that process. So things are good down here, down on Long Island here. Other than that, I've got one pup. His name is Tico, and he is a chocolate lab, English bred. A little bit thicker, big wide head on him, and he is my hunting buddy. So
Hell yeah,
looking forward to talk a little bit about the beast and what we do, and in season, off season, got a lot of stuff to cover here.
Awesome. So how'd you come up with the name?
So a Tico is actually a piece of hardware we use in construction. My business is a general contracting company. So it is when we're framing a house, it's a joist hanger that supports the roof structure of a house. So, just always had the term around. And when I got them, all the guys on the job were like, Tico, Tico, Tico. So sounded pretty good, and kind of just went with it. So it's fitting. His legitimate registered AKC name is GPC's Heavy Duty Tico.
Love it.
Yeah, so he's the man. He is the man.
That's awesome, brother. And the one thing that I always thought was interesting is when we're in college in upstate New York, which is very, rural compared to being down in the city, even Long Island, you would always go hunting occasionally in the off season. Jerry played lacrosse as well with us, but you'd go hunting in the off season with one of our good buddies, because hunting in upstate New York is probably a little bit different down in Long Island. But how did you get into hunting? Because to me, my little pea brain, it's like, Long Island, where do you hunt down there? I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, so I live about 50 miles out of New York City. So we're out in the suburbs here, and it wasn't actually, something that was big in my family. I met some neighbors here on the island, and they were older guys, and said, "Hey, why don't you come out and go through some youth courses?" So I participated in Ducks Unlimited has a youth program here on the island that they hold at a county park out in Hubbard's County Park, and they bring in young guys, young hunters, bring them in, run them through hunter safety courses, some great demonstrations they have. They do dog work there at the courses during the weekend. You go to get your license, your hunting license. So I went through that when I was younger. And then from there on, man, it grabs you and sucks you in all aspects of hunting. And I caught the bug real young, and then it's been with me ever since.
So do you typically hunt down in Long Island, or do you try to travel a little bit, depending on what type of game you're trying to hunt, and what type of game do you try to hunt?
So down here on Long Island, as far as hunting, we do have some great areas to hunt. Obviously, it's a lot of big open water if you're in referencing waterfowl hunting, which is the basis, a large majority of the hunting that I do. We should have a lot of coastal species of ducks, some diver ducks, which are pretty desired by some people who are, Midwest, don't really get to see the kind of species of ducks that we have in the Atlantic flyway here. So we got a lot of great public land opportunities, and then some also great private land opportunities for waterfowl hunting, upland hunting as far as pheasant goes. The DEC does a great job here on Long Island of stocking some public lands. And there's also private shooting preserves here that, guys who don't get out too often, don't have the experience of doing things on their own. They go to these private hunting clubs, and they're able to get after it that way.
Yeah, just to learn. And I've got to assume
Yep.
that being in upstate New York during college to hunt, it's probably a completely different picture, because then you have the opportunity to hunt on either public land or private land, depending on where you are. But I'd say probably up here when you were hunting is probably private land or privately owned by one of our friends or whoever, but you're probably hunting deer, or did you still hunt?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what is pretty cool about hunting in Rochester, Central New York area, is that you get a different experience than we do down here on like the coast and on the island. We do hunt a lot of open water, back bays, marshes down here on the island out of boats, which is really cool with the dogs. But upstate in Central New York, you're hunting a lot of cornfields, smaller ponds. While I was in Rochester, I did a lot of hunting off of the canals, actually in these big cornfields. The birds roost in the water overnight away from predators, and then come up into cornfields in the morning to come and eat for the day and, hang out and loaf. So, 20 minutes from Nazareth, where we were at, I was running to cornfields and doing a lot of goose hunting, goose and, ducks out in the big cornfields. And it was a ton of fun. Great spot for hunting, Rochester, greater Rochester area. Didn't do a lot of big game hunting up there, which I wish I did a little bit more of, but time consuming in school, off season, try to squeak it in where you can. So, but yeah, definitely great spot to hunt up there.
Cool. And I actually, one of a friend of a friend, I just started kind of learning a little bit more about this. But if you're doing any sort of like goose hunting or anything like that, you're up super early in the morning, and you basically just go lay down and wait for these birds to basically come up, like you said. They're sitting in the water overnight for safety, but then they wake up and you're just laying there. Is that how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we get there, we start our morning super early, 4:30, 5 a.m. before the sun comes up. Birds are still sitting on the water roosting. We head out into the fields. We either bring a trailer with us or decoys in the back of the trucks. Pile out the decoys, set them into formations depending on wind direction. Birds come facing into the wind. So that everything kind of plays into effect as far as that goes. But yeah, pile out the decoys, put out the layout blinds, which are pretty much metal frame sleeping bags with doors, with hinged doors on them, so you could pop open. And then you kind of just wait for the morning flight to get off the water. You target the fields. Scouting is huge up there, so you got to know where these birds are feeding. And then you target those fields, get in those fields early. Those flights are going to be coming in to eat. So you're there with your boys in the morning. You got your coffee, your jerky, and your dog in his mud hut ready to go, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And so I've watched a couple like documentaries or shows on Netflix recently, but it seems like, you're there 4:35 whenever you are ready to start shooting birds. It seems like they come in waves. It's almost like you can shoot a couple down because there's this wave of birds coming out above you, and you're shooting off your back as far as I understand, but then continually for like the next couple hours, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just shooting birds whenever you get the chance. Is that how it works? Yeah, and we're novices, man.
Hopefully, that's pretty much the mindset in the morning. Hopefully they just keep coming in. Birds do get off the water at different times, and they come out to those fields. Once they get blasted out of the field by you, they're off to the next field. They got to eat. So, they're not heading back to the water saying, hey, don't go to that field. But you do get different flights coming in, and that's what's cool. You'll volley a couple birds. They'll come in, boom, boom, boom. Birds drop. Dogs are out in the field working. They mark the birds as they go down. Boom, they're right out on command. They're heading out doing their job. So they're all jacked up. So trying to control them as the first set's coming in is always a handful, and setting the tone for the day. You don't want your dog breaking out and putting your dog in a dangerous situation with shooters. Everyone's popping up. It's pretty chaotic when the birds come in. So the dog's got to be, locked in, focused, listening, obedient dog is the safest way to be hunting with the dog. So, as far as that goes, that's pretty much the game plan going into a morning hunting out in the field with the dog.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the dog's role in all of this and what they do out there with you.
Yeah, so when we're hunting waterfowl, either out of a boat over big water, or we're hunting in a cornfield or some kind of ag field, the dog is pretty much used for the pickup aspect of hunting. So you don't have to get your lazy ass out of the blind, go find the birds out in the field. They crawl, a wounded bird will be down in a field trying to hide under, whatever kind of cover it can get away from you. And you'd be surprised. You walk past these birds just laying in a field because their colors, are such great camouflage, but there's no shot it's getting past the lab's nose. That's out there jacked up. He's sniffing that thing out and he's coming right back because he knows that once he comes back, there's another, group coming right back in. So he's dialed in. And, we usually, we use these dogs for one, locating the birds when you're upland hunting, but when you're waterfowl hunting, they're mostly just used for the retrieving aspect of the hunt.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. And it makes perfect sense that a dog's easily going to be able to find a duck much more efficiently than a human would. I mean, their nose is far more efficient, and like you said, with the camouflage of the duck's feathers, is that what you call it?
Yeah, yep,
feathers.
Yep.
They don't have a coat. Yeah. They have a.
No, they're feathers.
Sorry.
But
I know a lot about dogs, not birds.
They're just it's crazy to watch instinct and also training take over when these dogs are out in the field. As soon as they're we use electric collars on the dogs. Once they get their collars on in the morning, the guns crack open. They hear the shells racking in the guns. They know what's about to happen. So they, their sense of awareness heightens up. They get all, you can see the adrenaline rushing through them. They get shaky, they get a little vocal, and it's really, it's really cool. That's what got me into it so much, seeing the natural aspect of the dog and, hunting with these guys who, in upstate New York and down here on Long Island who have such great dogs. And just to see them work and their desire to naturally go out there and do their job as retrievers is just really something awesome to see at a high level.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you'd mentioned instinct, and it's funny you mentioned that. So I have a golden retriever who isn't your typical hunting dog, but I believe that's what they were bred to do. And I'll walk this dog like 5 feet past a rabbit and won't have a clue, won't even notice that this rabbit's there. But I'm taking him for a walk, and when the geese or ducks fly overhead and they start to quack, he just locks in. He just hears that sound, and he will not take his head off the sky for a second. It's just crazy to see an animal who's a year old just do something like that, almost like he knew that's what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, and you've obviously never trained him to do any of that. And to
anything. No.
kind of branch off of that, I mean, it's you said it's very imperative that these dogs are trained well, because I can see, I've woken up from a nap or whatever it is on the couch, and I've woken up and headbutted one of my dogs because they just like don't know where the fuck they are. But like if you're popping up ready to shoot some geese or whatever it is, and that dog's not trained properly, I can see what you mean. Like if you're pulling a gun up to shoot some geese, and that dog's head's right in your face, no bueno. So it's
I mean it's safety first out in the field as always, and sometimes you're not hunting with your buddies who have an experience of hunting over a dog, so kind of touchy subject when you first go out into the field. I do some work down here on Long Island with some private shooting preserves and some outfit companies, and you get these clients that come into that don't really have a ton of hunting experience over dogs. They come in, and you have to really let them know, hey guys, if the birds are down lower level than a certain point, no shot. Don't even think about taking the shot, because the dog's going to be out there working. You take a low angled shot, there's a good chance that you're going to nick that dog, and that's the last thing that anyone wants to see. So yeah, hunting safety with the dog is definitely something that's super important that we preach whenever we're out in the field, whether it be on the boat or on land. So
and that's one of those things too that I think there's either a stigma or people just don't really understand it. Like I think a lot of people that don't hunt have this perception of hunters as like, kind of maybe one of these guys down in the bayou who doesn't have an education that's just fucking shooting a shotgun off like randomly at whatever. But when it comes to conservation and responsibility and safety, hunters are doing it for a reason. They're doing it either because they have tags for a certain amount of large game or geese or whatever it may be, that you're regulating the population of these animals in a certain area. But at the same time, safety is the first thing on your mind, like you just said. I mean, it comes down to, hey, what is the safest way that we can regulate this? Shoot some geese so we can have some geese jerky to chew on the next time we're hunting and not injure the dogs, right? I mean, is that kind of where the mindset is?
Yeah, exactly, man. And just watch them do their job and be happy. They come back with a smile on their face. It almost looks like when they're coming back with the bird. So, and both handler and dog are in it for the same reason, is to get the enjoyment out of it. So, but I just want to go back and touch on something real quick that we were just talking about, is that the instinct in the dog of, bringing itself to, a hunting situation, and like Greg's, golden retriever, seeing a flock of birds overhead or something like that. And I just want to talk about the selection of a pup, when you're considering getting a gun dog, and going into pedigree lines of, champion hunters and stuff like that, and selecting, what is a good bloodline for a hunting dog. I'm just getting into, gun dog training, or I'm just getting into hunting with a dog. How do I go about finding good bloodlines for, dogs with natural instinct for hunting and all, that kind of a route. So when you're targeting a pup and you're starting to think about getting into, shooting with the dog, you want to look at, bloodlines, talk to breeders, talk to some trainers, find a good bloodline that suits you, whether that be an American style lab, an English style lab, or if you're going with any other breed of dog, you really want to get in depth, know where your pup is coming from, know the sire, know the dam side of, the genetics and DNA, and see, if that bloodline does have good hunting, titles, championships, all that kind of stuff plays into a factor when you're looking for a pup. So another really good thing to take a peek at when you're starting to, become interested in getting a gun dog pup.
Have you seen, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but have you seen that Greg and I recently have had a few people on that have talked about like puppy mills, whether it's breeders just trying to make money off of, overbreeding or breeding kind of, I mean, there's always some level of ancestral breeding with dogs, but I mean, do you see that with hunting dogs as well? Do you see that there's potential breeders that aren't being as responsible and ethical as they should be when it comes down to breeding and offering the best possible puppy for these situations?
Yeah, I think you're going to see that pretty much across the board in all breeds and all aspects of, working dogs, just because people are trying to push and make a business out of certain things. But I would definitely say you see less of that in, hunting bloodlines and any kind of working bloodlines, because people are so specific about the breedings, and they try and stay away from, those puppy mills or, people who are breeding the dilute dogs or, silver labs. I'm sure you guys have heard about all the discrepancies with silver labs and the bad breeding of the dilute pigments and stuff like that. So you do see a decent amount of it, just like you would anywhere else. But definitely, I think in working breeds, you see less of it just because people are so conscious of it, as to where you get that more in, designer dogs and non-working dogs, household pets and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree. And I can see how that would kind of overlap with just somebody trying to pick up their first dog ever or whatever it may be. But for you, when you were choosing Tico, I know that you've had a few labs in your family in the past, but what was important, whether it's temperament, breed, the breeder? I know we kind of just touched on it, but what was important to you and what stood out with Tico that made you want to pick him up as your homeboy and your side piece for hunting?
My side piece. I love that. Yeah, I was, so when I was in school, I was kind of starting to think about it, about getting my own dog. I was pumped to get done with school so I could actually make the leap and get a pup, because then I would have the time to dedicate to him. I do have an older dog, Ace. I'm not sure if you guys remember him from some of the tailgates at school.
Yes, dude.
So he was my first attempt at a gun dog, and I just got him from a local breeder here on Long Island. Didn't know much about it, but I was hunting at that point. Was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to get a hunting dog, this and that. Went to a local, decent reputable breeder here on Long Island. Purchased the dog, got back with him, and then just started taking him out hunting. Didn't start any kind of formal training because I didn't really know too much at that point. But I was like, I want this dog to hunt. I want him to hunt, and just brought him out. And then I learned kind of what I wanted in a pup once I started getting into that. And the biggest thing during, gun dog training is consistency. And I was away at school, so I didn't really have the time to put into my first dog. So he kind of became the family dog. And now once I had graduated college, I was like, all right, now I'm going to set out. I'm going to get my first legitimate gun dog. I'm going to seek training, professional training help and really do it. So I had gone out. I don't know if that came through to you guys too, but I had gone out and taken a look at some breeders here in New York. I didn't want to travel too far, but temperament was a big thing. I wanted a laid back dog. I didn't want a high drive, high energy dog that you find in like the American field bred labs. I wanted someone, a pup that was going to be, ready to go when I needed it, but also, be ready to hunt. That was big. So I had searched out a breeder in Waverly, New York, towards Binghamton, called Hidden Pond Labradors. And they breed the English style labs that of what Tico is. And I had seen his father's pedigree. I'd seen his mother's pedigree. And what was interesting is that he didn't come from hunting lines. He actually came from champion show lines. And that's another big thing of people who are big into, gun dog training or field trial, hunt test. Oh, you need to get a dog that has bloodlines, champion bloodlines and field work and this and that. And I'm a big proponent of saying that you really don't. It's all what you make it. And that's kind of why I targeted Tico. So I like the look. I like the big blocky head look. And that's what I was targeting. So I had gone out and spoke to Dave up at Hidden Ponds and put a deposit down on the breeding. And sure enough, I wound up with Tico. And actually his brother is owned by one of my good buddies who is also a gun dog here on Long Island. So we have two dogs out of the same litter, and they're crushing it together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love the English lab look. I love the blocky head. They're just handsome boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. He's a sharp looking stud. He's 3.5 now. And, hopefully later this fall, he's going to be actually paired with a female upstate here, and looking to get a litter out of him. Yeah, he's a sharp looking boy. He's at his peak right now. He's about 75 pounds is kind of where I try to keep him
ideal weight.
Year round.
That's fighting weight.
His fighting weight is about 75 pounds. But it was definitely good to see both of them come up together. Tico and Thor is his brother's name, and go through the process of the gun dog training. And it definitely, I think it helped, having two dogs out of the same litter, because we did send the dogs away when they were 6 months old. I had sent Tico out to a professional gun dog trainer in Pennsylvania. Randy Jones with Sabi Soul Retrievers, had taken both Tico and his brother for 3 months, and that's when they started their gun dog training.
Yeah, man, the camaraderie is super important, I feel. And those dogs, even though, after a certain age, they somewhat forget, about their brothers and sisters in that litter. I totally agree with you that at some point they're like, hey, there's a comfort associated with being around my homeboy Thor. But yeah, I think like you said, it's super important to continue to make them feel comfortable. And I totally agree. When it comes to certain aspects of raising a dog, it all depends on the owner. So for yourself, you knew that you wanted to have a laid back dog. You didn't want more of a high energy dog, like you said with the American labs, but yeah, it's all about the fit, realistically.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not able to have a dog that's super high strung. I work in a small office, so I'm fortunate enough to be able to bring Tico to work with me every day. He's my shotgun buddy. He's always in the truck, coming to different job sites and hanging out in the office. But I knew that I couldn't really handle a high strung dog, a dog that needed to be run twice, 3 times a day for a couple miles. But rather, a guy who's able to chill. I take him for a ride in the morning, ride in the afternoon, and he's cool with that. So, that kind of dog and style had fit my, lifestyle so perfectly. And I was able to utilize them with the hunting, with the hunting aspect too. So that was why it was such a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. It definitely sounds like the two of you are a great fit for each other. I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to, but you might. So when you go out with Tico and say Thor, or a group of guys and a group of dogs that Tico knows, can you tell the difference between going with dogs that he's familiar with and been around versus, say, a new group of guys, a group of different dogs he's never seen before? Is there some sort of like a team?
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I take him out with Thor, his brother, or I take him out with some dogs that he's worked in the field with before, they hop out, they look at each other, they wrestle around, and then they put on their game face. But, if I'm working Tico with another dog that we don't really know, there's obviously some, tense moments at first. He's an intact male. So, intact male meeting another intact male is always a little bit tough guy moment. But, they get along good, and they all know what they're there to do, why they're all together and what we're about to get ourselves into. So it's pretty cool to watch them go from house pet, loving dog, and put their game faces on once they get out of the kennel with their collars on, and, they're strapped up, ready to go into the field to do some work. So
yeah, man, it's like getting ready for a lacrosse game, right? We're all fucking coming down, getting in the right mindset. We're all ready to fucking go to war. So
right.
I know.
Yeah, it's cool.
That or like a pickup
it's cool, man,
game.
because yeah. I mean, we ride around the truck all day, and there are assholes on the road, so I do try and keep them in the kennel in the truck as much as possible. But when I throw him in the kennel, the shotguns come out. He smells the scent of the ducks. He knows what's going on, so he kind of hangs out in his kennel quiet until we get to the woods. And his electronic collar that goes on him beeps twice before it goes on. So as soon as he hears that double beep, man, he's, in the zone. His nose isn't coming up for the next, 2 hours or so if we're in the field pheasant hunting, or if we're in the duck blind, he's dialed in, eyes to the sky. So it's pretty cool to watch that happen.
Yeah, like son, like father, because I've seen Jerry almost put a kid in the hospital. And you probably have, but almost kill a kid on the field. But no, when it comes down to how early you start these guys, I mean, how soon do you start the training? I know that you got Tico very early on. When do you start the actual, it goes from potty training to literally putting them in a situation when they're ready to hunt. So what are those like milestones in that first year per se?
Yeah, man, it starts right away. Even when you don't have the dog, it starts when the dogs are still at the breeder, during that eight week period before you pick up the dog. If you're purchasing the dog from a gun dog breeder, they're probably going to start getting the dog familiar with water, taking them out, splashing around in puddles, some ankle deep water if you're at a freshwater pond, or if you're able to get into a spot like that where the puppies can kind of familiarize themselves with water, because the rest of their life they're going to be in it, in uncomfortable situations in it. So the sooner that happens, the better off you are. So, I mean, it's literally starting right away. And I know, gun dog trainers are out there. They're shooting off popper rounds as the dogs are eating, as all the puppies are eating together. they'll start shooting off blank rounds in the house or outside, getting the dogs instantly familiarized with gun noise and the gun sound, so they don't become gun shy later down the road. Because that's the last thing that any person who wants to get a gun dog, you bring your dog home, you bring him out in the field for the first time, boom, the shotgun goes off and the dog runs away, or runs back to the truck or cowers and hides. So to try and eliminate that, breeders and non-breeders and people who are just getting puppies home for the first couple of weeks start that process right away.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Sorry to interrupt you. That's one of the things that I think I was watching a YouTube documentary, and it actually followed this hunting dog from maybe like the first day they went out on a hunt until he was 10 or 12 years old. And it was actually very moving to watch this, because I think the end of the video, it was showing that they didn't show it, but I think the dog definitely passed away afterwards. But yeah, one of the big things was they had a few different dogs, and the way they kind of separated them very early on was if they were gun shy. There's certain dogs that just flinch or run away or are not comfortable with that sound, with the event of shooting a gun. And a lot of people, probably most of our listeners, don't know what it's like to actually be around an actual gun being shot. It's very loud. I mean,
it's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more impactful than I guess you would ever assume. Some people growing up fucking shot a BB gun or a pellet gun, and it's like, or even shot a 22. A 22 could probably kill somebody, could probably kill a bird for sure. But when you go into actual hunting and you have a real gun, it's a totally different story. So I can see it's super important.
Big geese like the birds that we hunt, we're shooting 3.5-inch shotgun shells out of 12 gauge shotguns. I mean, This is like a M80 mortar going off right next to the dog. So for him to not be comfortable with that is just totally not acceptable. So the sooner you could get it drilled into his head, like, hey, bud, this is going to be us for the rest of your life. Get used to this noise. They're familiar with it. And now, I hunt with Tico out of our layout or in a boat. I got a 14-foot duck boat that me and him are sitting in. So he's literally 3-4 feet away from me as this thing's, as I'm ringing off shells at these birds, and, not a flinch. He's sitting there waiting to be released. He's, shaking, jittering like, oh man, oh man, oh man. Those shells go off, the birds drop, I release him on his name. So I'll give him a Tico, and boof, he's off to the races. So it's, they got to get used to that, and starting them off right as pups is the only way to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I take it Tico is not afraid of fireworks?
Oh no, we were walking around the 4th of July and he's looking up in the sky waiting for birds to drop, standing still, looking around like, well, who's doing all the shooting, Dad? He's the last thing, afraid of fireworks.
That's funny. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's interesting to think about, and I think that's a lot of what you just said is what most people don't actually consider when it comes to this. And like I said before, hunting in general has a little bit of a stigma associated with it, but the fact that you're probably taking, and I'd say for you individually, you're taking much better care of your dog. You're training them properly. You're stimulating them the way they need to be stimulated from one aspect or the other. That's
Sure.
a lot of the stuff that most people don't understand when it comes to hunting or raising a dog in general. The fact that you said, hey, I wanted a dog that fit my lifestyle perfectly, where I don't have to go out, take him for a run, 2 or 3 miles in the morning, whatever in the afternoon, but that you're mentally and physically stimulating them to the point on the weekends or whenever you go hunting that it's satisfying their need as a dog. And your dog's probably Tico's probably in better shape than most fucking dogs that we've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not a traditional, fat English lab. And, when I was going to go, I was actually going to show him, and, show dogs on the East Coast are typically these heavier, overweight, big fat labs that have, big blocky heads on them. And
hey, I got one, man.
Nice flat coats. You guys know labs are notorious, the endless stomach. So they do tend to get fat unless you are watching the dog, regulating its food, feeding it, quality foods instead of just table scraps. I try to limit, people food as much as possible. And I'm fortunate enough to where Tico actually likes every vegetable under the sun. But besides cucumbers, it's the only thing he doesn't like. So I actually feed him a blend of, kibble food and like a bunch of vegetables. Carrots are his favorite, bell peppers, a bunch of that stuff just to kind of keep him healthy. Some fresh fish in there to keep his coat, nice and oiled up. But we tend to take care of on a different level as far as conditioning goes, keeping the dog in shape. When I do take him for runs, I ride my mountain bike with him, and he's running right next to me, the whole time, and getting his conditioning in that way if we're not, doing something else or we're going out hunting that day. So we always like to keep him in shape. So when he does hit the field or we're pheasant hunting and we're doing, we're walking 10 miles, we could walk 10 miles pheasant hunting, but the dog's doing about, 10 to 15% more than that because they're looping around, going around trees, on scent, running around. So the dog's got to be in great shape to get him out in the field like that. So
yeah, and I know Greg wants to touch on diet, but the one thing that I also think a lot of people
we went over it.
Well, yeah, but the one thing that a lot of people don't understand as well, you touched on feeding dogs fish or some sort of essential fatty acids or whatever it may be, but it's imperative for labs because a lot of people don't know if you have a pit bull or some dog that doesn't have an undercoat, they don't really understand what it means to have, an undercoat and your regular fur because it's super imperative for labs and retrievers, I think, as well, because the buoyancy needed for them to be the best swimmers out of the dog community, it's very, very important for you to feed them the appropriate food so that they can do that the best they can. So I'm glad you touched on that. So Jerry, don't mean to kind of go off topic, but just trying to get through all of the stuff that we want to cover. So when it comes down to, professional dog trainers, I know that to me, you're a professional dog trainer. You know 100% more than what Greg and I know. But I mean, whether it's you're taking your dog to a professional gun trainer or, you are a professional gun trainer raising a dog, what is that all about? I mean, what are the costs? What comes along with that? What's the baggage?
So, you got your pup, you're looking to get hunting, you're looking to get going. You really want to start figuring out, am I going to do this on my own or am I going to seek out some professional help? And at first, I obviously told you guys before, I tried going the self route with my first dog and then soon realized that, I need to go seek out some help. I need to start doing this right and get myself set in fundamentals, and then I can build off that. So when I had purchased the pup, Tico, and got him back to the house, I started researching and asking around some guys, who in the Eastern US is the top trainers and what are they doing and how do I get involved in groups and other kinds of aspects of getting some serious training help. So I had actually gone to a couple different kennels and sought out some different trainers that I had got recommended. And it was a pretty important process because you're going to be leaving your dog with this person for 3 to 5 months, and they're going to have your dog every day, living in either a kennel, outdoor kennel, indoor kennel. So, I mean, your dog at that point is your baby. So you're handing your dog off to this guy. You want to see what they're going to be doing, how they're training, what methods they're using, and all the other intimate details of what's going to be going on while you're not around with your dog. So
yeah, that's a long time to put trust into another person.
Yeah, I was thinking a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, the typical process for gun dog, the initial stage is anywhere from 3 to 5 months, and what that does is it gets the dog through first month or its first obedience steps and yard work during the first month or so. They're only doing obedience work, simple commands, getting familiar with the dog, building the bond between the trainer and the dog. So it's a pretty important first step. And then once they do build that foundation of obedience, they then move on to some more advanced retriever training, drills, and conditioning. So it is an in-depth process, but typically the first stage is between 3 to 5 months.
That's it's hard to understand, I think, for most people because they're training their dogs from day one until the dog dies. You know what I mean? But
right.
The one thing that I thought was super interesting, and one thing that I think Greg and I have talked about, offline, off the podcast, is the train or the testing that's necessary. Whether I think we talked about recently, dog dock jumping and things like that. I know it's totally different, but when it comes to the American Kennel Club, the AKC, and then you sent us the UKC hunt test. I'm not really sure what that is, but why don't you break down, what the hunt tests are, what is actually necessary to get involved with that, and then what it consists of.
So The hunt test scene is pretty cool, and I only got involved with it once I really started hanging out with the trainer while Tico was away. I would go out and visit him on the weekends and run through some training and drills with them. So me and Tico's bond would start developing and phasing out the trainer. But I started getting into and researching the AKC hunt test during that time, and it was something that was pretty cool. And I had gone and visited my first test here on Long Island probably the year before I got the dog. And what it is it's a AKC sanctioned event, the American Kennel Club. They sponsor the event, and they host them at training grounds, private grounds, public grounds. And what they're testing the dog on is they're testing the dog against the standard, where they feel the dog should be at a junior level, a senior level, or a master level dog. During the junior level, they're looking for you and your dog to becoming a team. Obviously, they're not looking for 100% control, but they're looking to see that the dog does have interest in retrieving. It's not terrified of the gun noise. The dog is, is going in the right direction of becoming a hunting retriever. And
they're trying to get better.
Yeah. During a junior test, what goes on is that you have two simple marks on land and on water. And these events are, held during one day. So in the morning you show up, you're greeted by judges who are going to be judging you, and then the other field of handlers that are entered into the event. You guys go out into the field, and then they show you the simulating the hunting situation that they're going to be judging your dog on. And in the junior category, it's two simple marked retrieves. And what a marked retrieve is, the dog sees the bird come up and sees it land, so they know where the mark is. So they'll have it come out from behind like a small camouflage canvas, barricade. The bird will be launched out of a, almost like a balloon launcher. Mm-hmm. It comes out and it's launched into some kind of high cover when you're doing the land series. And then in the water, it's launched into the water, whether it being deep swimming water or some other kind of shallow water. The bird has to land in the water. So the dog is released by you. In the junior division, you can hold on to the dog's collar and then let him go once he's ready to be released, or you can choose to not hold on to him, but you have to control the dog and he needs to be released on a command. He can't just break and go for the bird, or else you will be disqualified from the event. It's a safety thing. Once again, getting back to the safety issue, the dog is just going, it wants to go, it's not being controlled, so they try and nip that in the bud right away. So that's what's kind of expected from them in the junior stakes. Once you get up into the senior stakes, which is where Tico is at right now, or I should just step back. To get your junior title to move on to a senior stake, you need 4 passes. So the dog has to do a land series and a water series. They pass those. The judges pass them. Okay, good. They get 4 of those. They now have their junior hunting title, which is what it's called in the AKC. In the UKC, they also host events. UKC is very similar to AKC. It's a big organization. They sponsor hunting events, and other kind of dog events, agility, stuff like that. But they consider this HRC is the hunting retriever club who puts on the test, and their stages go from started to seasoned to finished. Same thing as junior, senior, master. And same guidelines, same parameters go. 2 marked retrieves at started on land and water, 4 passes, and they're on to seasoned. Once you do get up into senior and seasoned levels, they're looking for things to challenge you and the dog a little bit more. So now they want to see that you guys are working in tandem. You've built trust in each other. You guys are working as a team. And now you're going to do more technical, such as blind retrieves, which means that there's a bird planted. The dog did not see the bird go down. They have a bird planted either on the woods or on the water, stuck in the reeds somewhere. And you have to get this dog from your side at heel and get them out to that bird to retrieve that bird. And they're grading you the entire time. And how you're getting them out there is you're sending them, you're casting your dog, back, or that means for him to be, go straight out. And then, your whistle sitting him, he'll look back at you, and then you'll cast him right or left with your hands and work with hand signals to get him out to the bird. So those are some more of the technical, aspects that come into the game as you get higher up into the senior, seasoned, master, and finished stakes. And then some other things, you'll have triple marked retrieve. Boom, a bird will be shot. A live bird will actually be shot during the test in one station. Then the look in another direction. Another bird will be shot down. The dog marks it. Another bird will be shot down. The dog has to remember all these spots. They could be, from 50. I think the max in some of the upper level tests is 100 yards. The bird won't be past 100 yards, but the dog has to go out, hunt the bird, bring the bird back, and not deviate from that too much while it's being judged, or else they do deduct. If the dog takes off in another direction or catches the scent of another animal and just takes off across the field, they're going to start marking you down for deducted points. So it's pretty neat. A lot of people are very involved in this. It's a hobby for some people like me. Obviously, hunting comes first for me, but the test scene is pretty cool. It's definitely intense to see older dogs working at such high technical levels. I mean, the dog, you can basically steer some of these master and finish level dogs with a flinch of your leg in one direction will pull the dog's head to look a different way. It really gets intense once you get into those upper level tests and the ability of those upper level dogs.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. It's almost like a show dog in a dog show, but doing way more intense things and way more badass things than just like walking in a circle and like looking fancy and having a cool looking haircut. But
just wanted to interject, though. I have actually a pretty funny story. My brother Kevin, he lives down in Tampa, Florida right now, but when he was in college up in Rochester for his first couple years, Jerry, he used to do this thing where it relates very closely to what you were just talking about with the whistles and the hand motions, but he'd be out at the bar, and this is very, very inappropriate, but he'd be out at the bar and he'd use whistles, like he'd whistle with his mouth, and use hand motions to get girls to go get him drinks, or if a girl was hitting on him, he'd send her away to go try to find whatever else he could. It was pretty fucked up, but it's pretty funny because
different world in Tampa, let's just say that.
Yeah, well, sometimes now I'll be talking to him and he'll be just like fed up with my story, and he'll fucking whistle and give me a hand motion to like get the fuck out of his way.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he's such an ass. He's such an ass, man. Oh my god. No, that's crazy though. That's the stuff that's super interesting to me though, is like those tests, because like you said, it's one of those situations where you're truly testing the attention, the obedience, the qualifications of these dogs, and it's cool that there's different segments and different levels in which they can do this. But that's awesome. That's awesome. So
yeah,
for you, I know that there's probably, I think you're probably comfortable doing some particular training method, but what is the training method that you took with Tico? And then are there other training methods outside of what you did that are popular when it comes to training gun dogs?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of guys out there that have books and training methods that you can kind of go off if you're an amateur trainer. There's Robert Milner, which is a guy who is a well-known trainer throughout the gun dog world, who's got books out there, training methods that he follows. There's another Hillman is another trainer who has videos on YouTube, books, literature that you can read, and also has his own way of doing things. Obviously, I went the route of the professional trainer, so the trainers do have their own way of doing things, but also base a lot of their training off of these older legends in the training game, like Milner, Hillman, and a bunch of other trainers that are out there. So what I do is, when I was done with the trainer at Randy Jones at Savvy Soul Retrievers, he left me with like a homework list of things that I do just to keep Tico conditioned and not let him get too far, lax and, kind of take a mental lapse in his training. So when you do leave your gun dog trainer, they will give you some guidelines and tips to kind of keep your dog on track with the training that they've instilled and techniques that they've taught the dog. So you kind of just go with that, and you can put your spin on it. Like the next dog that I'm probably going to be getting pretty soon, I may or may not be sending him out to a professional trainer, just because I've built some fundamentals with the trainers that I've trained with, and kind of seen, maybe I want my dog to do this a little bit differently, or I want to go this route with getting to this milestone. So I think it's cool in that aspect. You could kind of take the little bits and pieces from other different trainers, put them all together, and kind of put your spin on it the way that you want to get your dog trained up. So, and I think it's also unique to the dog too. Some dogs could take a lot of pressure, where some dogs can't really handle pressure well. Tico is specifically a softer dog, which means that, when we're doing e-collar training, as soon as he feels a tone or a vibration on the e-collar, he straightens out right away and becomes, super obedient, as to where some dogs, typically American field-bred dogs, are a little bit more stubborn in their ways, or even Chesapeake Bay Retrievers, where you have to be on the e-collar on like a 6 setting, heating this dog up on the e-collar just to get him to listen to a command or take a command from you. So it's kind of, on a per dog basis of kind of how you can go about, drilling an idea or a command into these dogs. So, putting your spin on it or taking things directly from the book, you could go either way. That's what makes it cool and unique. So, that makes it fun.
Yeah, and that's where you can relate it to human beings too. I mean, we all played lacrosse. We've all been coached a different way. It all comes down to the best way you respond to whatever stimulus. Whether it's like you said, if it's
yelling at us to get to the hill.
Yeah, yelling
down a hill,
yeah,
1,000 times.
Yelling, or some kids need to be fucking, walked through the gauntlet, hand in hand, just to make sure they know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But it all depends on, and it all comes down to how well you turn out on the other side. There's no best way in my mind to do it when it comes to coaching and learning, and I'm sure it kind of correlates to dogs as well, as you just touched on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jerry, we're coming up close to an hour here. What else would you like to share? Is there any like specific dog story, or like, one of the craziest things you've been a part of? Like, I hope to God you haven't shot any dogs as they're jumping in front of you shooting some birds, but do you have any cool stories that you could share just to kind of relate to what we've been talking about?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's cool to finally get out and hunt with your dog by yourself, and put all that hard work, that you put into this dog throughout the off season and the training and the traveling that we do for the test, and kind of just get in the boat, just me and him, and go out and do what we love to do. I mean, I hunt with with a lot of guys most of the time, so I don't really get the time to just spend with me and Tico in the boat, or, in the boat or in the field, where it's just me and him hunting together. There's no one else around. There's no distractions, anything like that, or other dogs working or guys shooting. And it's cool when you could get out and just see your dog doing what you train him to do, and really just, embracing that moment of, we made it, all this hard work and dedication, and now I've got myself a legitimate hunting dog. And I think that moment is really cool and really makes it all worth it. Like I said, I hunt out of a 14-foot boat. It was cool. I just purchased it this year, and was doing a lot of hunting off the land, and then finally got into the boat. And now to see Tico, rip off the back of the boat, because we've got birds down in a back bay here, or out on the ocean. It's pretty cool. A cool story. We hunt sea ducks here on Long Island, is a big thing. It's a species that's commonly targeted. And when we're hunting these birds, you're hunting, in either the sound or in the ocean. These birds like big water, and it's kind of tough to unhook the boat. If you don't have a dog, you got to unhook the anchors. You're double anchored up in a swell. You're shooting on a big seas, so you got a swell to contend with, and it's pretty intense environment. And our seasons run from October till January, so we're typically hunting in freezing temperatures. Close to freezing, if not freezing, and it could be raining, or gnarly weather is typically better weather for duck hunters. So this season I was fortunate enough to go out with one of my buddies, Paul. He's got a big sea duck rig, and he's got a big yellow. Eli is his name, is Tico's best buddy, and we took Eli out sea duck hunting, and we were hunting on a swell. It was probably rolling 3 to 5s in the Sound, in Long Island Sound. And,
Wow.
big salt, body of salt water. And we had birds coming in left, right. And, it didn't take Eli long, first rig bird, volley of birds came in, boom, boom, boom. We knocked down a couple couple birds, and boof, he was right off the bow of the boat into the water, swimming through a 3 to 5 foot swell. He's got whitecap breakers breaking on his head, and he's heading out, to get those birds. And to see a dog work in those conditions, it's like, holy shit, man, that thing is a beast. His face is covered in blood, comes swimming back, surfing a 3 to 5 foot swell back to the boat. It's really, really something cool to watch. And there's guys here on Long Island. My buddies over at Elite Long Island Outfitters, they hunt sea ducks off of Montauk Point. And a lot of people who aren't familiar with Long Island know Montauk. It's a famous surfing, big rocky area where a lot of ducks like to raft up. So it's a really good duck hunting spot as well. And, they've got these dogs swimming out there in freezing temperatures, 50 degree water, 60 degree water. And these dogs are swimming in it like it's a summer day, man, just loving and doing their job, getting out there and getting after it. So, I mean, watching dogs work in environments like that is really just something else, and you get that, pretty much all across the board with these working dogs, whether you're hunting on land or water. It's just a great experience to watch them do what they're naturally trained, what's ingrained in them, to what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, man. And, based on what you just said, it's it's one of those situations where you're challenging yourself. You're shooting off of a boat, like you said, that's double anchored. So, a lot of people that aren't out on the water very often, you have to literally double anchor your boat so you're not moving around like crazy. I mean, you're sitting in fucking big waves. A lot of people will get in the water on the ocean or in a lake, wherever it may be, and you see a little 6-inch, 1 foot wave, and that might be big to you. You're sitting out there shooting out of a boat with unsteady footing and that kind of stuff. So to me, and the way that I look at the relationship you have with a dog, it's very comparable, because you guys are sitting there, you're challenging each other. The fact that you're in that situation as well, they can feel how you're feeling. You're shooting at ducks. When you hit a couple, the excitement that you feel is being dispersed throughout the boat. They can feel it as well, and they're jumping in and swimming through those whitecaps for you. That's where it's fucking amazing. And I can see how, like you said earlier in the podcast, it can be addicting. You get kind of sucked into this kind of thing, not for the reason that a lot of people think. They think you're addicted to shooting birds. No, it's realistically that addiction to being with man's best friend. You guys are hanging out together, like you said, when you're coming into a situation where it's the first time you've been out together. There's that relationship that you're building, and it's amazing. And that's one thing that a lot of the times in life today you don't really get on a daily basis. You have to go out of your way to find that. So I totally respect it, man. Like I said, we're coming up on an hour. I don't want to cut you off. If you have anything else to say, let us know. But otherwise, I think we're pretty much good, brother.
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome talking to you guys about it. Hopefully it enlightens some of the listeners that you guys got tuned in here into the world of working dogs and hunting retrievers. And like what we just talked about. So it's definitely special to see these dogs out there doing a job and doing what they love. And we're not just a bunch of guys out here just shooting birds for the hell of it. We're shooting these birds, as a tradition in most parts of the country and across the world, and using these dogs to conserve and preserve game. If we didn't have these dogs, we wouldn't be able to hunt birds, on the ocean, being able to retrieve birds like that, bring them back and, put them on the dinner table. So, it's definitely a great experience to be hunting with a dog. And if I could get anyone interested into the world of hunting or retriever training, I hope it's something sparked here during our time on through our conversation.
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't want to say, hey, follow Jerry, because I know it's probably your personal account. But if you want people reaching out to you to maybe get into this, where do they follow you? Do you care?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool. I'm on Instagram, JERRYC 18, Jerry C 18. You guys can follow me on there, shoot me a DM. I can put you in touch with some people in the training world. If you're seeking some professional training help, I can point you in the right direction, give you some advice on some books or literature that I've read to help me along my way. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks a lot, Jerry. It's been fun to reconnect. Very inspirational, very informational and educational, but thanks a lot, brother. And we hope to have you on again in the future.
So, you got it, guys.
Awesome. So every episode, we wrap it up by saying wag more, bark less. So let's do it on 3 together. All right, bud?
Yeah, you got it. Let's go.
1, 2, 3.
Wag more, bark less.
Bark less.
Thanks, Jerry. Fam, what's up? Thank you so much for listening. Great episode as usual. I guess I'm biased. It's always a great episode, but
No, this one was really good. I learned so much about hunting dogs. It was just absurd.
my brain is full of information, Greg.
So overloaded.
But hey, follow us at Barkology Podcast pretty much on every social media platform. If you want any of the WAG swag, come to barkology.itemorder.com. Get some of the gear. We love the support. If you want to help us continue on with the podcast, maybe get some of the gear. Love you guys. Tune in pretty much weekly. We'll try to do it every week. Greg, I love you. You love me. But Barkology Podcast, thanks again. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, baby.